So welcome everyone. We are here in BIMbc Vancouver as part of our Spec BIM integration series. Glad that you're able to join us today. We'll keep the introduction fairly short. We have Matt Sadler with us today from NBS, who have developed a tool named Chorus to integrate specification and specification writing with BIM authoring software such as Revit. BIMbc, in case you don't know, is a group of passionate individuals here in Vancouver who are trying to promote best practices in BIM and trying to connect with others. Obviously, it's been challenging with the current situation, but we're glad that many of you were able to join today. And if you can just please make sure to mute yourself and hide your camera. It seems like everyone's doing that. We will hand it over to Matt to take it from here.
All right, if you guys have questions at any point in time, because we do have a reasonable size group, feel free to stop or throw questions out there at any point in time. What I'll do, I'll take the first just minute or two, we'll do a high level overview of MBS. We'll jump into MBS Chorus, our online cloud specification tool. We'll walk you through a quick demo of that, and then we'll show you the Revit integration as well. So MBS was created, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary this year. It was started over in the UK by the Royal Institute of British Architects. A couple of years ago, we got acquired by LDC, which is a private equity firm out of the UK, which has injected the cash flow required to go globally. So last year, we opened up in both Canada and Australia in about mid-2019. And really, the evolution of the company has been from paper to cloud. So if we go back to 1973, the company started out doing kind of encyclopedia-based specifications. So I like to imagine our CEO with backpacks of specs going out there and selling them door to door. In '82, it evolved to real fancy 5.25-inch floppy drives, and then it's continued along the path. As we merged through 2011, we realized there were all sorts of requirements coming out that were really hard to manage. So you had customers that wanted to work not just on a PC, but on a Mac or a phone or a tablet. So we decided to change routes, and we moved to a cloud platform in 2019, allowing for a collaborative environment that could be used on essentially any device at any time by anyone. We've covered most of this off in terms of the reasons why we've made this transition. So the whole point is kind of work smarter and safer. So what we found is about 1/3 of major projects end up in some sort of dispute. Of those, almost 1/3 are based on poor specifications. And so really what we're trying to avoid is everybody doing their one part, kind of throwing the paper over the cubicle and saying, hey, I'm done, I'm out. How do we keep everything together and work in more of a collaborative environment? That is a very, very fast overview on MBS. Are there any questions before we jump into the demo? No, you guys are easy. Has anyone heard of MBS before? Take that as no as well. Yes? All right. All right, we'll hop into the platform really quick. So it's cloud-based again. Anyone that can access a web browser can access the cloud platform. You'll see within the dashboard here, we have a list of all the different projects that I've been playing around with. If you needed to search for a project, you can either scroll up and down, find the one you're working on and click on it. You can also click this little button. You can see it in grid format if it's easier. Or you can simply just type a couple letters of what you're looking for, and boom, it pops up. So it's really easy to find a project. For the point of today, we're going to create a little sample project for you. So to do that, we simply create it on Create a Project. For project code, we're just going to use today's date. Title, I'm going to call this one Delta Hotel. We'll say it's a new hotel, and we'll say it's for the Marriott. This information is what shows up on your headers and footers later, so you can customize that to whatever information you want. I'm actually based out of Vancouver, but back before all this craziness, I was traveling to Toronto 2 to 3 times a month, so I've got that address memorized. So this allows you to do a little geo mapping so you can keep track of all your projects. And then if you want to get fancy, and just give me 1 second here because IT was working on my computer and moved everything around. You'll see here, we'll use a picture of the Delta Hotel over in Victoria just because it's a little more pleasing to the eyes. And for project description, you can put whatever you want in there, and then you simply hit Create Project. So within about 30 seconds, you've created a new project that we see here. So we're going to click in to our new project. You'll see we have 2 options. We have specifications and we have team members. So team members is where you would add anyone else that you wanted to work on the project with you. This could be somebody within your company. It could be somebody with external to your company, anyone that you want to provide data. So I'm going to invite Amy really quick here. I can select whether I want her to be an administrator to be able to do absolutely anything, or a contributor where she can just add or remove content. You could also have somebody set up as a reader where they can read only, or limited access where you may want somebody to only have access to one specific specification and not your entire project. So for today, I'm just going to put Amy as a contributor, and it's as simple as hitting send invite. And you'll see that there's been an invite sent to Amy. It's pending because she hasn't gone in there and accepted it yet. So now we're going to get to our specifications. We're just going to call this one a hotel spec. And in our content sets, because of all our different global locations, we do have content for Australia, for Canada, both CMS and NMS, as well as NMS French, and then some UK content. For the purpose of today, I'll just show you the CMS content. Once you choose your content set, it's as simple as finding what it is that you want to specify. So for this example, I'll type in window, and it's going to pull up all sorts of windows. So I'll add aluminum windows, plastic windows, wood windows. It's as simple as clicking on the plus. You'll notice for every item, there's also guidance over on the right-hand side. So if you were working on something that was new, you weren't 100% sure if it was right, you get a quick little view of what is inside of that specification. Let's say I'm having a difficult Monday or Friday. I spelled door incorrect on purpose. You'll see we've got some smart technology built into the platform to help you out on those rough days. So we'll add some door hardware, maybe sectional doors. And again, you see that the guidance changes as that changes. If you're a little more advanced than me and you've got all your divisions memorized, we call them codes. You can simply put code :08 an example, and it's going to pull everything up in 08, and you can simply go down and select whatever it is that you're looking for. So regardless of how you try to do it, it's very intuitive, and it's really easy to find any of the content that you're looking to work on and specify. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to call them out. And if not, I will just continue to keep going. So if we go into any of the items that we've specified, we'll just use a wood window as an example. You simply click on it, it pulls up your standard 3-part master format section. Within each section, you also have your guidance that will appear over on the right-hand side. And if you want to do any editing, you'll see in section 1.1 here, wood windows, I can click on this drop down. There's some predetermined information to make my life easier. If I wanted something different, I could simply just type whatever I wanted to put in there as well. The two main important items for writing specs that you need to understand on the platform are, what do these 3 dots do, and what does the P do? So P is for park. If there's items in here we don't need, we simply click on P and it'll park the data. If we want to, let's say our project changes later on and we need that again, we simply unpark. And so you can park and unpark an article, you can park and unpark an entire section, or a paragraph, or whatever it is that you're working on. So that's kind of the number one thing that you need to know. The other thing that you need to understand are, what do these 3 dots do? So if I'm looking at number 3, and you'll see every time I make a change, it automatically renumbers everything I'm working on. But let's say I want to add a line above number 3. I click on these dots, I hit insert new row above, and I can enter my information here. If I wanted to add a row below what's now number 4, I'd hit the 3 dots, insert a new row below. I would enter spec here. And if I wanted to get fancy and I wanted to do a indentation, so I wanted to do 5.1, I simply click on insert indent and type my information there. Now, if I really want to get fancy, I can also highlight the information I'm working on. You can do little things like bold, italicize, and so on. But let's say I want to create a hyperlink. I can create a link to any URL I want. You'll see it slightly changes color there. If I click on that, it'll take me direct to that link, whether it's within the platform or your published document. So sometimes that's used for warranty information, or if you want to reference another document on a Google Drive or whatever the case may be. That will be the advanced feature of today's little introduction. The other thing that's been added recently is, you'll see over here, it tells you anytime that section is changed, it tells you the date, the time, and who did it. So you're able to tell who is using it. And again, just back to the comment I made earlier about adding a team member, if I go down to 1.3 here, you'll see it's grayed out and there's a little lock. So Amy has actually joined. She's in 1.3 right now, and she's gone and she's made a bunch of changes. So she's currently working on 1.3. If I wanted to, I can save what I'm doing, go into 1.2, and I can actually add a note. So there's little notes features over here. I could say, "Hi, Amy, please complete 1.2. And you can use the notes function for any sort of communication that you would like. I could go down to section 1.6 and say, "Joe, please provide feedback." So in terms of how easy it is to create content, edit content, add a line, remove a line, or collaborate with others, is that pretty straightforward?
Yes.
Yes. All right. The single.
Sorry, does the person get notified when you enter your, like, say, Joe?
So at this point in time, the person doesn't receive a notification. It's a brand new feature that we've just added based on current customer requests. But what happens if you go back one section to your overall specifications, there's a tab here that has all the notes consolidated. So you can click on one tab, you could see every one that referred to yourself, and when you click on it, it will bring you right back to where that note was, so you can quickly reference what needs to be done. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. The other thing I added here that I wanted to show you guys really quick is we also have a template section. So if you're doing something that's truly unique, that the content doesn't exist in CMS or NMS for any reason, we've added a 3-part blank specification that you could fill out for whatever your needs and requirements are. All right, so up at the top here, you saw me click to go back one screen earlier. It's just like any Windows-based kind of filing system. If you want to go back to your dashboard, you can either click on Projects, you can click on Projects, MBS, or Home, or click on the MBS chorus up here. So it's really simple to get back to your main page. Now, let's say I was doing something very similar when I was working on this 4 points project, and I didn't want to redo the specification from scratch. I wanted to kind of borrow something and reuse it in my project. I can go into my 4 points hotel here. I can go into this specification and I can see, as an example, gypsum board assembly I didn't have, but I know it's going to be almost exactly the same. So I select that. I go to Actions, I click Copy To. I'm now going to select a project. I'm going to pick the Delta Hotel that we were working on. It's going to say, where do I want to put it? Well, I want to put it into the hotel spec that we created. I click Paste, and within a second, when I go back into my Delta Hotel spec, and we go into the hotel specs that we created, we now have that gypsum board assembly that's been added in as well. Now, if the entire project was very similar, and I'll just take a training spec I was working on here, and let's say we look at it and it'll have a whole bunch of different items in there, and I want all of that content, I can simply click on these 3 dots, go Copy To. Again, I'm going to select a project. We're going to select the Delta Hotel. And this is going to copy the entire specification over and bring us into our Delta Hotel spec. So we're now back in our Delta Hotel spec. We've got the original spec that we created, and then we've brought this entire training specification with all those items over as well. So it's very easy to use an individual item from a previous project or an entire specification and just move it in and do a copy into your new project so you can use it. Now, if you're only working on something that you do maybe once every couple of years, that saves a lot of time and it makes it easy, but you still have to go through and take anything that's been customized that doesn't fit into the Delta, and you need to clean it up. What we suggest instead is we've added a feature called Masters. And this is where you could go and you could have, you know, maybe a hotel master or a hospital master, or like I said, we got some school masters and stuff like that. But a template that you typically use as an organization over and over and over again. When you set that master up, you would typically have your clean copy, and then you'd set it to read access only, so that, you know, it's always a clean copy when somebody starts that project. You don't want somebody going in and customizing it and editing it all. And this is where you really get the time savings of up to 70% more efficiency when writing specs. And so for this, if I want to take my sample CMS master and simply, again, click on the 3 dots, go to copy to, we're going to select the Delta project again, hit copy now, and within a couple seconds, we've taken that entire specification and we've moved it over into our project. So in terms of how simple it is to move one individual specification over to a project that you're working on, whether it's taking an entire specification or whether it's taking a master template and moving it into a project, is that somewhat understandable? I will take that as a yes. And if I'm moving too fast, just let me know and I'll slow down for you. So a couple other features that I want to show you that customers tend to really like. If I click on these 3 dots here and I go to what's called our spec check report, I'm just going to run this really quickly. You can do it on your entire specification, or you can just do it on an individual specification. We're going to run this on the entire specification just as an example for you. And what this does is it goes through your entire project and it looks for any missing or omitted values. So let's say in this situation, you were working in Div 8 and then somebody came and started yelling at you saying, hey, I need Div 1 and Div 00 done. So you went and did that and you're working through your entire project and you forgot to go back and finish Div 8. This is going to pull a report for you of all the sections with blanks and missing information. And so you can now sit there and click on, we're going to click on the second from the bottom here. And when I click on that, it's now going to go and open up the platform again. And it's going to take me into that project and into that very specific point where there were any missing or omitted values. So you'll see here, it's all of a sudden scanning through, it's taken me to the manufacturing section, and it said, hey, these 2 spots are left blank. You need to fix that before you submit your proposal. If I was now to go back and I was to rerun that report, we'd have 1 less item on the report. So it's a real neat tool. It helps prevent a number of errors, and the feedback on it has been just fantastic. The other item that we have is we have the ability to export submittal reports. So we can do that in 4 different ways. We can do what's called the MBS format. It's a very basic plain Excel file. Or we also have Excel files that are customized to be imported into Autodesk BIM 360, Newforma, and Viewpoint. So I'll just give you a quick example of the BIM 360. And because this project hasn't been completed, there's not a great deal or any data that's coming out of it, but what I'll show you is if we go to the lookups, basically what it's doing is it's searching the document for any warranty or guarantee informations or samples, so you know all the dates when samples have to be delivered and so on and so forth. So rather than having to go through 1,000 pages with a red pen and try to mark it all up and keep track of it all, it really automates that process for you. Are there any questions on the submittal reports or the spec check report? All right, we'll get into publication. So we give you the ability to publish in either PDF or Word, whatever works for you. And what this does is, had we have published a number of documents before, we're able to choose to compare against any other ones to know what's been changed and what's been updated. We haven't published this yet, so it's showing us that there are none. So we'll just go through this really quick. And then we have also added a new feature called style sheets. This allows you to update a style sheet with any headings, headers, footers, number styles that you prefer, colors, fonts, and so on, and get the format exactly the way you would want it for a published document. I'm just going to use the default one for this quick example. And we'll open it up. And you'll see we have our sample specifications. The table of content is all automatically done for you. And you've got all your data that we created within that sample specification. Now we're going to hop back into that. And we're going to go and make some changes. So we'll completely park a couple of items. And we'll go in here and we'll park this and unpark this. And then we'll go into here and make a bunch of changes as well. And I'm just going to use this because I'm going to publish a second time, and we're just going to do a compare feature so you can see how that works. So we're going to publish it again. This time I'm going to say I want to compare it to our version 1 that we've done. I'm just going to call this 1.1. And this time I'm going to use kind of a crazy style sheet that we did for some demos that we were doing over Halloween, just to give you an example of kind of how the style sheets would work. And so now when we open up the new document, we're going to see any items that have been revised or unchanged. And then you'll see kind of the wacky, crazy fonts and titles and numbering systems and everything else that has been changed using our style sheet. So really easy to see what's been revised, what's been unchanged if you have to review the document. Obviously, if it wasn't in all these crazy colors, it would be easier to read. I'm colorblind, so this is absolutely useless for me, but I hope it gives you an example of how much customization you have within the output of your actual published document. So that very high level is a quick overview of the cloud platform. Before I hop into Revit, are there any questions or any other items you'd want me to jump into within there?
So Matt, is there a way to import stuff in there?
So very good question for those that were having a look at some things early on. So at this point in time, it's just finalizing in development, but we do have, or will very shortly have, the ability to import from Microsoft Word. So if you have a number of masters within your organization and it's data that you wouldn't find or use in CMS or you wouldn't find and use in NMS, you will very shortly be able to import those masters via Microsoft Word import. For the time being, we are doing that for clients that are moving forward. So while we're working on the finalized version for end users, we've got a director of technical services based out of Edmonton that will be helping clients import their data for them if that should be a requirement. But excellent question. Any others? You guys are the easiest going, quietest group I've had in a while. All right, we'll hop into Revit. You
Maybe
guys,
just as a maybe an uneducated question, but NMS covers everything: architecture, mechanical, electrical.
minor civil. Let me hop back and give you a better example of that. So if we're adding content, I can search by everything, or I can customize my search. So if I only want to work in architecture, landscape, services, structural, civil, I can pick and choose within all the different categories that exist.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. All right, we'll hop into Revit. It's going to give me an error here because I didn't log out on the other platform, so just bear with me for 1 sec. And any questions that you guys have on the platform on what we covered a minute ago, you can ask me while we're here, and I'll still be able to answer it. So what you'll see is we have Revit, and then we also have our MBS plugin. So anything that we were able to do within the cloud environment, we can actually do from within the plugin within Revit as well. So we're going to hop into our hotel project that we created. We're going to go into our sample CMS master, and I'm just going to click on an item here. What you'll see is up at the top, we've got a couple of additional items. One that you'll see here is called model. So if I click on model, we've done absolutely nothing aside from log into the plugin. And right away, you can already see all the items within my model that haven't been associated. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go and associate some stuff. So I'll take this window here. I'm just going to say it's a wood window and associate with the model. You can get down and associate right at an article level. I'm just going to keep it at a section level for the point of this demonstration. Click on associate, it takes 2 seconds. For this window here, I'm going to say that it's a aluminum window, not that they're used often anymore, and do the same thing. Now I'm going to click on this door, and I'm going to say that's a flushwood door. I'm going to associate that really quickly. So a couple things have happened. Right away, you'll see a little icon showing what items have been associated and what haven't. If you'll realize I only associated one window here and one window here, but the system's smart enough to know that, hey, this window here is exactly the same as that. So it automatically associates all the other windows that you've done in your project. Similarly, if I click on this one, it knows it's an aluminum window as well, that it's the same as what we put on here. And if I click on the door, you'll see my specifications come up right away. The other thing that it does is it tracks what's been associated and what doesn't. So if anything happens at this point in time, if your specification is removed or if something on your model is removed, it will give you an error report. So let's take this door as an example. We remove the door. When we scan the model, we now see, hey, there's an issue. If we click on it, this door in this specification, the object is now missing within the model. So I can either go and fix it, or I can say, hey, that was meant to be that way, so I'm gonna unlink it. So it helps kind of design a true digital twin of what you're trying to do with specifications right down to the model. This also really helps eliminate any of those last minute issues with specs not matching up with models, with changes being done at the end of a project and so on and so forth. And then we can also annotate if you want. So you can sit there and say, hey, those are my aluminum windows or those are my wood windows, and add just a little more detail to your Revit model itself. So it's kind of a very high, quick level overview of the Revit integration. One other thing I'll show you is when we do integrate into the model, we do it at the family type level, and you'll see that there's 3 very specific small lines of MBS data that gets added in, and that's how the specifications link directly to the model themselves. Are there any questions on the Revit integration side?
Hi, Matt.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think someone was speaking at the same time. You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. What if you have like specifications for the same family of windows, but let's say one for the second floor and one for the first floor? How do you differentiate that in the specifications? Or even for doors, if you have the same family, you're using the same family in the model, but depending on where the door is, you're gonna have different specification.
Like if it was, yeah, but it would be it wouldn't typically, so you'd associate the different specification in that point in time. So the door wouldn't be exactly the same within the model, right?
Oh, you create a different family then?
Yeah, so as an example, if you had an interior door that didn't have to be fire rated, you would have a separate spec for your exterior door that had different requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you had your content within your specifications, most likely you're going to have a separate one, or the way you can do it is when you, instead of doing it at a general level, where I associated specifically just as a aluminum window, you could get down to the article level and associate the more detailed attribute so that you could do the different floors uniquely as needed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Was there somebody else hiding out there?
Yeah, so you've shown that where you open up the model and you actually have a sample spec that has content, and then your model is just start to link the elements to those content. But what if you had nothing to begin with? Basically, you create a project, and then what you're actually trying to do is you wanted to create a spec for the project that you're working on, like architectural model, for example. Then what would the sort of workflow or step, like would MBS be able to generate a basic, like a spec section, all the basic one for you, just based on scanning the models?
So I absolutely love the way you think. And as we move forward over the next kind of 18 months or so, I do believe that you'll see things starting to go there. So what you're basically saying is the reverse, if I understand it right. If I had a model that was built, could I automatically pull 85% of the required spec sections in, so I just started from there instead of the other way around, right?
That's correct, because that's how design process works. Actually, spec always comes last. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the goal, to move in that direction. But in today's world where we live, we're going from an outdated way of 30 years of piecing together Word documents and trying to keep accuracy and so on and so forth in the spec writing world, and we're trying to digitize it and get to that first kind of level. The evolution of where you see things go in the future will be a change to an automation of model to data. So it is an evolution that we'll see, but it isn't something that will be out there anytime really soon. But it's an excellent question, and it is the dream if we call it MBS 3.0.
Okay, thank you.
Now, that being said, when you do absolutely nothing, like what I showed when we first logged into the plugin, as soon as we clicked on model, we were able to see everything that was unassociated, regardless of whether there were specifications. So we would know, as an example, that I need a plumbing fixture specification. So if I go into my content, I see that that doesn't exist. So the other way of doing it would be to sit there and go and search for what it is that you need. And so in that situation, we didn't have plumbing fixtures. You can see we have some sinks over there. So I went from a model that had nothing. I added my plumbing fixture, and I could now go into my model if I wasn't still trying to annotate, and select my sink. I could now go into my item, and I could go down a level and say, okay, instead of just having it as commercial plumbing, I want to associate that sink. So you could start your specifications from blank with a scanned model that shows you what you need to go and search for. But most people today still have kind of their models and specifications as two different groups. They haven't quite got to that level yet. So you can do part of it. I would just like to get it to a point where there's that next level of automation, where you're able to scan the model and automatically have all those sections brought in without me having to go and search for it. And that automation will come. It's more of a evolution that we'll see. So you can do it. I just dream for a day where everything's even more advanced than it is today.
Thanks.
Yeah. The other thing that I didn't have time to show today, but is a good example. So on a wall, when you go and associate to a wall, you can associate multiple layers. So you could have, as an example, maybe your brick, you could also have your insulation, your gypsum board, and so on and so forth, all associated into that one item. So you can do multi-layer associations as well.
Do you have a time to show us how, like, because a wall I guess has different material layers. So do you actually have to go to each material and then associate that to a spec, or how do
you'd have to associate each one. So you'd have to go and associate the different layers. I don't think I have the tags loaded, but if you give me a second, we can try. So we could take our basic wall here, and we could say, okay, we want to have brick layer. And maybe we wanted to also go in and add, I don't know, whatever other materials you want. You could get, again, right down into, I haven't filled out product information, but you could get right down to whatever detailed layer that you wanted within that. And whoops, my apologies. Clicking on the wrong button. And so it's showing me here what I've associated and what I'm missing within that wall. I think it was that one. No, did that wrong. You'll see my Revit skills are not quite up to the same skills as yourself. Oh. And so when I click on it now, it's showing it's going to be a layered object, and it shows me everything that's in it. And we can go in and do a separate section for you on some more advanced ways of doing the multi-layering. If you guys really want kind of a mid-technical level on the Revit side of things, what I'd do for you is I'd set up a time where we'll bring in David Watson, our director of technical sales, and he can answer all your Revit questions for you. But high level, does that give you guys an idea of something that you didn't know much about?
Yep, I think that's good. Thank you.
Right, so that's about what I have for a quick coverage of the Chorus platform. For anyone that wants more information, we'd be happy to set up a one-on-one meeting for you guys or anyone else in your environments. It's going absolutely crazy right now. We've got tons of stuff going on. Obviously, for those of you that have been in the industry for a long time and pushing down the BIM journey, it's starting to finally make some more progression and some more ground in Canada. It seems to be a little behind when you compare it to some of the stuff that's going on in the UK and so on and so forth. But we'd be happy to help progress things, and even we do a lot of work with organizations right across Canada, some that are much more advanced on the BIM route than others. And if you guys need help networking with some other organizations or things like that, we'd be more than happy to help you guys kind of build and progress what you're working through as well.
For sure. And I guess, do you want to share your email perhaps, Matt or Amy?
So you guys can contact myself. You can also contact Amy Ross, who's on the call helping out. And depending on where you're located, we can help point you in the right direction. So I'm based out of Vancouver. We've got 3 people working out of BC right now. We've got 2 in Edmonton. We've got another couple in Ontario. So regardless of where you guys are based, we're supported to pretty much help you out right across the country. And yeah, you can reach out to either one of us, and we are happy to help.
Excellent. Well, if they're in the interest of time, I think we're trying to keep it a little bit under the hour in case someone wanted to sneak a bite or have a little break. So thank you all for attending, and thank you, Matt and Amy, for putting this presentation together. I think it was quite helpful.
Yeah, no problem. And like I said, if you guys need any follow-up or any help with future stuff, just let us know. We're happy to help customize it in any way we can for you guys, and greatly appreciate the time.